everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're getting started a little bit early here. I thought my software would take a little bit longer to get started, but I really can't thank you guys enough for joining us on this Wednesday. If this is your first live stream with us, thank you for joining us. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. This is a bit of a regular thing here at Tattered Cover. If you didn't already know, we have our live stream events. Our calendar is available on our website at tatteredcover.com, and you can check out all the different types of events that we're doing via live stream. Like we have one tomorrow. For any of you Bronco fans out there, we have Dave Logan, who is the voice of the Broncos, and we have him for his new book, If These Walls Could Talk, with Denver Broncos, which is kind of like an insider's look in the team. And then next week, we have a plethora of events, including Lindsay Curry, for any of your kid readers out there. She wrote a new spooky Halloween book, which is perfect for this season. So just check us out at tatteredcover.com/events, and then you can see what upcoming events that we have going on, like this one today. And if you want, you can always shop with us. Our website's open 24/7. For those of you who may be joining us that aren't in the Denver metro area, Tattered Cover is located in Denver, and we have 4 locations throughout the state, and they're all open to the public. If you come in wearing your mask over your mouth and your nose, you can come and visit us for about 90 minutes or so and shop in the stores and shop locally, because it's a vital thing in normal times, but especially in this pandemic, it's a huge supporter of the community. Independent bookstores, independent restaurants, local restaurants, we really appreciate your support. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. We wouldn't be able to have amazing events like this one that if you guys didn't continue supporting us. So please think of us when you think of your holiday shopping, any, stocking stuffers. We recently had an end of summer gift sale, and you can find out anything about Tattered Cover as you like by joining our newsletter. So just go to our website, and the first thing that pops up there is a question to ask and join our newsletter. So you can just type in your email there and get updates about what we're doing. And we really appreciate you guys continuing to support us in that way. So thank you for that. I also want to let you know that closed captioning is available for anyone who might need it. The way that you do that is the screen that you're watching me on right now. If you hover your mouse over it, there's a little button in the corner that says CC. And if you click on that button, then closed captioning becomes available for anyone who might need it for this event. Speaking of this event, I'm very excited to welcome our author that we have here today. This is such a unique and beautiful book, and for Coloradans, I think it's a perfect fit because we're such outdoorsy people. Don't get me wrong, there's outdoorsy people all over the nation, but there's something particular about Colorado people and how we flock to these mountains. And I think that this will hit home for a lot of us that have grown up here or just moved here. And any of you that has an inner explorer and who wants to connect with nature. It's just a really great collection. And so I'm here today to introduce Ted Williams. And Ted Williams writes full-time on fish and wildlife issues in a monthly recovery column for the Nature's Conservatory, Cool Green Science, and in various other publications. A longtime contributor to Audubon magazine, Williams was recognized by the Outdoor Writers Association of America, OWAA, as the nation's best outdoor columnist, and has received numerous other national writing and conservation awards. He serves as national chair of the Native Fish Coalition and lives in Grafton, Massachusetts. He's the author of Earth Almanac, and that's the book that he's here to talk to us about. So I'm gonna ask him to join us, and we're gonna have him turn his camera and his microphone back on. There we go. Should be any minute now of him just clicking that button there, and he'll start. Hi, Ted, you there? Seem to be having there he is, hello!
Oh, hello.
It's so good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be with you.
Yeah, from all the way from Massachusetts, and your lovely study that we were talking about earlier. It's so thematically perfect for what you do. I love it.
Sometimes it's a distraction.
Reminiscing, I'm sure. So I'd love it if you could give us just a brief introduction or a long, lengthy summary, if you'd like, about Earth Almanac and what is this book that you've gifted us with?
Okay, well, for years, something like 30 years, I wrote a column for Audubon magazine every issue called Insight, about 3,500 words, feature length. And it was muckraking, um, bad news. It had stuff that needed to be fixed.
Right.
It was important, but it was kind of a prescription for burnout. And I wanted to do a different column as well as Insight, kind of a reprieve and respite.
Hmm.
The good news, magical, beautiful things you can see in nature, sometimes in your own backyard if you look hard. So we started a column, same issue as Insight, called Earth Calendar. Somehow that morphed into Earth Almanac. And I didn't want to have calls to action in this because, again, that's a prescription for burnout. I wanted to introduce readers to again, the magic and beauty of nature and train activists. The advocacy would come later, I thought.
Right.
And that was really the purpose of the book and the column. In 1970, I went to work for the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. So I'm old enough to remember how terrible things were and how much things have improved. Back then, we didn't have a Endangered Species Act, we didn't have a Clean Water Act, we didn't have a National Environmental Policy Act, we didn't have a Clean Air Act.
Mm-hmm.
DDT was being sprayed all over the country. I had not seen a bluebird until I was 20 years old. Now we have bluebirds. I can't even go into our field without seeing a bluebird. We have boxes and we fledge 2 or 3 broods every year just in our boxes in the field. So bluebirds are one species that have come back big time. Because of the boxes, swallows, tree swallows have also come back. Because the big predator, the competitor, of bluebirds, starlings, alien species introduced from Europe, and they can't fit into the holes in the boxes. So the swallows can, so they're doing great. Back then, we didn't have any eagles nesting in Massachusetts. We have several dozen now.
Mm-hmm.
Camp in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, and Lake. And growing up, it's unheard of to see an eagle. You see an eagle at least once or twice a week in the lake. It was unheard of to see loons. We have loons all the time, calling at night. So things are getting a lot better. Ospreys are another thing. We had a few back then, but very few. Now they're everywhere. Again, because we banned DDT.
Mm-hmm.
So things are a lot better. And maybe I explained it better in a little essay in the book, which I might
You read for us then?
Yeah.
All right,
So,
I'm gonna shut my video off so they can see you, and I'll come back on when you're done.
okay.
Okay, I'll be back.
I am convinced that these regular retreats into what is pure and clean and right in the world have made me a better environmental reporter because they have reminded me what's at stake and what I'm fighting for. They also have reminded me that the crusade for healthy native ecosystems is far from hopeless and that good news abounds. As you read this book, pay careful attention to the many species that have recovered from desperate trouble or that continue to do well or at least hold their own in a world in which the general assumption is that everything has gone to hell. Even now, as I reread the manuscript, I find the good news remarkable and uplifting. These victories are more than isolated events. They result from new ways of thinking and new ways of responding to wildlife emergencies. Together, they prove that humans can undo the damage they've done and restore the planet. What's more, they indicate that humans can yet prove themselves to be successful species by living in harmony with their own habitat and with other life forms. Maybe if we can save gray whales and striped bass, we can save ourselves. I like to think that Earth Almanac has helped bring a balance to all my writing, and I hope that it has provided and will continue to provide sustenance to a campaign I've been part of since 1970 that I now believe we will win.
That's so great to hear. I think you do. You explain it wonderfully, and you explain so much in this book. Was there any difference in your writing style from, translating this into a book versus your journalism that you work on regularly?
Yes, and one of the big frustrations in fitting copy into a one-page, two-page spread that I had in Audubon was that I had to cut stuff.
Right.
Sometimes it's like cutting off your fingers. And,
Oh no. Yeah, it could kill your darlings, I think they also use.
so
Just
with
kill
this book, I restored all the cut copy.
Okay.
So and I added a little too. So hopefully there's a lot of new info in there that people may have missed if they read Audubon carefully. But the environmental groups, and I don't blame them for this, but they have to do fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to concentrate on the terrible stuff that needs to be fixed. And the good stuff doesn't get reported much.
Right.
So there is a lot of really good news about wildlife. It's important because without that, people feel hopeless. They give up. We need activists and advocates out there fighting for the good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's essential for people to recognize the progress that has been made and not just focusing on the negativity. I did get such a great sense of positivity from this book, and I love hearing it in my head. It's like you went on this positivity crusade, so to speak, with this book and with these articles to try and show the good and the progress, and you organized it very well in terms of the seasons and picking out a day of the year. Was it hard to choose which you were going to focus on in each section, or was it easy because you're like, oh, I have all this time and I know what to choose in each season?
Well, it was fairly easy for me because my editors did most of the work.
You were like, I'm just going to put in everything.
Organizing into seasons. Of course, with Audubon, when we had 6 issues a year, now there's 4. We had it was all geared to the time of year.
Right.
So some of the themes in there that I've been pushing, is, things you could see at the season, like winter. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks winter is dead, the dead of winter. That's a real misnomer. A lot going on in winter that you need to go out and look carefully for. Raptor wings in the snow, where they've attempted or succeeded in grabbing a rodent. Springtails. A lot of people don't know what they are, but they're ancient insects, 300 million years old, live in the snow. And on warm winter days, they come up and graze in the algae outside of the snow. They're a little bigger than pepper flecks. And
wow.
If you get down closely and tickle them, they'll spring. They have springtail. That's why they're called springtail.
You tickle them. I love it.
The people walk right by them and have no idea what they are. They think they might be just dust from a pine tree or something. But things like this and butterflies, and nobody thinks of butterflies in the winter. There's a lot of butterflies that are active in the winter. If you get a warm day, a relatively warm winter day, 40 degrees, 45 degrees, which happens a lot around me in the Northeast.
Us too.
Some of these butterflies will be flying around, and people say, well, how do they possibly hatch? They didn't hatch, they hibernate. So species like mourning cloves, beautiful black butterfly with yellow borders, commas and question marks, they'll come out and fly around in the wintertime, and they'll drink sap from sweet birch trees that are branched by people. So get out there and don't be intimidated by cold. There's no such bad weather, only bad clothing.
Well, and I think this is something we desperately need in our times right now in the world, with people having to sequester themselves and stay quarantined. A lot of people have been using nature and outside activities as a resource and to continue their own life and building their knowledge. And I'm curious if what were your intentions? You said positivity, and bringing good news to what's going on in the world around us. But when you were sitting down and writing this, did you have any other thoughts or intentions that you wanted to share with people? What made it better as a book, even than your articles? Did you think it would reach more people, or?
Yeah, I thought it would reach more people, and I wanted to emphasize things that don't get reported
Yes.
by biologists.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to get a lot of that stuff into the book. For instance, animal play. Why do animals play? All the biologists will tell you they do it because they want to train for later combat, territorial defense. That's really not true. One of my essays was about what otters do. An otter will take a pebble and put it on its nose and go up to the surface and drop it and dive and catch it on its nose.
So it plays catch.
And what possible activity could this be training for in the future? Otters do it to play, to have fun, just like humans. A tree swallow, which I mentioned, are coming back because of bluebird boxes.
Yeah.
Very, very well. They'll take a feather and fly up about 20 yards to the sky and drop it, and then chase it down, catch it, and everything. Now, what possible training could that be for? Perfect. They're great flyers. They catch insects on the wing. They're doing it because it's fun. And to deny that in animals is unscientific.
Yeah.
And cells, I'm sure, they're not all that dissimilar from human beings.
So you have such a plethora of knowledge, and it's something that, like I said, people are discovering, and kind of rediscovering nature and going outside in the world that we have today. And I'm curious, when did that passion start for you?
When I was very young, my grandfather and uncle take me fishing.
Okay.
And I noticed there was a lot going on other than fish out there that I was interested in. I was interested in the fish, of course. As Thoreau said, a lot of fishermen never understand that fished all their lives. Fish are not what they're really after.
Mm-hmm.
And might be one thing, but not everything. That kind of got me started. And I went to work for the fishing game department out of graduate school. Stayed with them for 5 years as their wildlife journalist. I learned a lot, made a lot of good contacts and friends. But I really didn't fit in the fishing game department. They stock trout, stock pheasants.
Yeah.
They didn't want the stuff that I wrote. So I started freelancing.
How did writing come into your journey with your fascination with fish? That was hard to say, and nature. When did that collide?
Well, really early on. I wasn't a star at school. Now, one thing I was good at was writing, so I concentrated on that and wrote about nature even in junior high school, and doing it since. Published a few things in college.
Did you ever dip into poetry? You have such great poetry mentions in the book. You just threw out Thoreau here as well. You're obviously very well read in it. Was that something you ever dipped into?
I did. I wrote a lot of poetry. I found it very difficult to publish.
Yeah.
I finally figured out that if you write a poem about a certain subject that a magazine likes, like Defenders of Wildlife, published a poem in there about spring peepers. But they're tough to publish. I did publish a book of my late uncle's poetry.
Aww.
That was a lot of fun. He was really good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so you obviously have been able to work in your poetry knowledge into your writing now. And I'm curious too, as we're talking about different elements of the book, we talked a little bit about structure and the poetry. I'm curious about the illustrations. Did you have any say in those? How did that come about? Because they're gorgeous.
They are gorgeous. I had no say at all. Um,
Well, how did that come about?
but I was pleasantly surprised. This one uh, drawing, not by John Burgoyne, this, but an earlier version of an osprey. It was a beautiful rendering of a two-page spread of an osprey flying over land on a lake. It's holding a fish, their tail going forward. And they don't do that. They always turn the fish around. So I had to mix that.
I love that you combined the science with the art to make sure that the art was accurate. That's really cool. I haven't heard of that before.
In this book, I hardly got a chance to see any. Like I did get a chance to see some of them, but I mean, it is so good. Here's a blue one. I mean, that is just gorgeous. You
can hold it up just a little bit higher.
Almost.
Yes, perfect.
Wow. Yeah.
It's so pretty.
Really beautiful, and he's great. He really is good.
I love that you're just flipping through it with all memories.
Yeah.
So we do have some audience questions here, and so someone wanted to know if you do want to ask a question. I just want to let the viewers know real quickly. There's a chat that's next to the screen. It's just to the right of it that you're watching us on, and you can type your questions in there. And so they would like to know, what was the most challenging season to write in the book?
Well, winter, because winter is not dead, but it's not a lot as much going on as there is, say, in spring. In spring, you get dazzled. You get so much happening. Hardly can keep track of it. Same with fall, because things are moving, birds are leaving and coming down from the north. Everything's happening at once. So you tend to get overwhelmed in those seasons. They're difficult too, but I think winter was the toughest because you do have to look hard for things to see, and they're out there. There's a lot, but you gotta make an effort and look for get out there, even when it's cold. Wear the right clothing.
Yeah. So then let's see what's here. So someone did have a comment that says, "Thank you for acknowledging that recognizing the emotional motivations of our fellow animals and is not merely anthropomorphizing them. We certainly do sell them short." And so I'm curious, do you have any other examples of where the emotion, not necessarily just animal play, but are there other things that you observed of that humans might misconstrue as anthropomorphizing animals when it's really discrediting their science and not scientific, like you said before?
Well, yeah, I have a big problem with anthropomorphizing animals. It's a mistake to do that.
Right.
It cheapens the animals. In a lot of ways, animals have superior talents than humans. They may not have as big a brain, but they have better equipment to deal with adaptations to their environment. So there's a lot to understand about animals if you watch them and study them.
Well, absolutely. That's why it's
and fish as well.
Hundreds of people do it, and it's multiple disciplines. It's fascinating. And so this is a good one. What do you advise for someone who's new to nature walks and observing animals? What is your best advice for someone who's newly starting out?
Well, get some binoculars, get a good field guide to birds. It's also several great butterfly guides. Jeff Glassberg has some great ones, butterflies, binoculars. Get those. Just get outside a lot. keep a journal of what you see.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, take kids on expeditions, and don't just tell. You got to tell them there's a certain motive that you're going for, something you want to see, and then they'll notice other things, milkweed blowing in the wind, neat stuff that the kids love to do, and that's how you train advocates and activists.
Yeah, you have to start young. You have to.
Yep.
So here's a question. I have to be honest, I don't quite understand, but we're gonna try it. What are a few of your favorite spots to find lions, either in New England or the West? Loons. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, that makes way more sense now.
Yeah.
She just corrected her. I was like, lions? Is that a species I don't understand?
I'll answer both questions because there are lions, mountain lions in the east.
You are right. Sorry, that's just funny. Go ahead, please.
We're not, I don't think there's breeding activity, but they're here. You don't know where they came from. Don't know if they're escaped pets or if it's coming from the east.
Wow.
But they're certainly in New England. And I know many people who've seen them that I trust. Our wildlife photographer at Fish and Wildlife when I was working there, Jack Swedberg, poo-pooed it all. And then one day, this mountain lion standing in front of him 50 feet away.
What?
And he had a witness with him. So they're here. Get talking about loons.
Yes, loons. It was her intended question.
Loons have been dying from lead sinkers. If they eat a sinker, one sinker will kill them. That has been a big problem in the past. But most of the states have outlawed lead sinkers.
Okay.
New Hampshire's leading the way, and the loons are doing much better. They're expanding their range. We have a camp in Derry, New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire. It's a very busy lake. We're on an island. And it's really not loon habitat. Loons don't like to be there, but there's so many loons. They're pushing south, and now they're breeding in our lake. The jet skis and motorboats are passing, and they're adapting. So the best place to look for loons, big lakes in Maine and New Hampshire. Winnipesaukee has a lot. Anywhere, any big lake in Maine will have loons. Most of the big lakes in New Hampshire and Vermont. Massachusetts has a few, not too many. That's really south of the lake. But again, the range is expanding, so that might not be the case in a couple of years.
Yeah. Speaking of travels, did you have a favorite place that you traveled to while working on this book?
Well, that's really a tough question.
I'm sure it's probably like asking your favorite child, because I'm sure you have a plethora of wonderful places.
I have a lot of roots in Maine. I went to college in Maine.
Oh, okay.
And I think that probably northern Maine would be my favorite spot. I went to a good deal. Alaska as well.
Visit the same spot in different seasons?
Yes and no. I mean, there are places I went to fish, streams and lakes, or just hike. I would guess
Maine, which is really good to hear. It's on me and my boyfriend's list. He spent a summer up in the Northeast. He was stationed in Vermont, but then for his internship, and then he did New Hampshire and Maine, and he loves it up there. He very much wants to take me back. And so you're inspiring me more when this COVID pandemic has ended and we can travel safely again to get back up there. Yeah. So someone would like to know, what is your advice? You gave us great advice on how to start nature walks and everything, but what's your advice for wanting to start being a journalist?
Well, first of all, be prepared not to make much money.
because you love it, right? Not because
there's,
it pays
there's,
well.
there's only one profession you can make less money at, writing about fish and wildlife, and that's saltwater guiding for fishing. So that's my ambition now. But it's a tough go. It's starvation diet, so be prepared for that.
Hmm.
And if you're lucky and good, you might make a lot of money. People have. They hit it right, but it's a tough shot.
So then what drew you to journalism, in terms of out of all the things to write about? You could have taken that knowledge and written amazing fiction books, set with all of that wildlife knowledge, start a mystery series or something. What was it about journalism that was so attractive to you?
Well, I'm impatient. I like instant gratification. So I want to go out and see stuff and report on it.
Hmm.
And because I'm interested in fish and wildlife, that was naturally what I wanted to write about. That's what I always have written about, only fish and wildlife, ever since the 70s. Again, one of the things I like to do is write, so it just happened.
Yeah.
And back in the 70s and 80s, there was a big market for fish and wildlife and environmental writing.
Hmm.
I had to turn down assignments, and now it's hard. It's hard to get them. People are kind of burned out. They want to read about other stuff, and they only want quick sound bites. I got an assignment once from Audubon for 25,000 word article. I mean, that would be unheard of now. Most of my articles that I write, they want 1,500 words. That's even considered long.
Hmm.
Internet generation, that's quick soundbite. That's frustrating.
I'm sure. Absolutely. Speaking of generations, and someone asks about, you mentioned that this book is finding the positives in nature, but how do you feel that things have gotten better when there's climate change and a lot of issues when it comes to global warming?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say that we haven't got huge problems with the environment.
Hmm.
My mission is to also point out the progress we've made. If we don't report that, we won't deal with global warming. Remember acid rain? That was a terrible blow. It was going to wipe out everything, and we solved it. So let's not slide backwards. Weakening the Clean Air Act, this administration has done. We need to keep it strong, and we don't want to slide back. But certainly, there's a lot of stuff that we need to fix still.
Hmm.
The population is growing. We're running out of habitat. We need to save every scrap of habitat we have. And we have to restore habitat. And there is a lot of restoration. One of the things I've written a lot about is restoring island wildlife. A lot of these islands have been infested with alien rodents, rats and mice, feral pigs and goats. And they've destroyed the native birds. And a group called Island Conservation is poisoning off the rodents and shooting off the feral goats and pigs. And there's a huge resurgence of native endangered birds.
Right.
So you probably heard about Rat Island in Alaska.
I haven't, but it sounds terrifying.
Terrible. For 200 years, rats had just destroyed the place, had eaten all the vegetation. It was a huge island. And Island Conservation and the Nature Conservancy went in there and they dropped rodenticide all over the island. Of course, it was very controversial. The public doesn't quite understand that rodenticide is in the right hands by wildlife management is vital tool that needs to be done. The public abuses it, but wildlife managers have to use it. And they wiped out the rats, and everything came back, and the vegetation came back, and it's a paradise. Palmyra Island in the South Pacific, the same way. There's hundreds of islands that have been stored by poison, and the public has a tough time dealing with that. But poison, anticoagulant poisons, not poisons, are abused by the public, and they are killing non-target animals. But when these poisons are deployed by professional wildlife managers on islands, they're the only thing that works. If you want to get rid of alien rodents and other animals that are wiping out native species, that's how you do it. That's the only way.
I'm learning so much. I mean, I was a theater and an English major, so like that gives you any indication. But it's so fascinating. Like Rat Island alone, that just sounds like a horror novel, honestly.
There's even a book called Rat Island. People should
really?
Yeah.
I have to look at that now too.
Yeah.
I think this is a really great question for our last Q&A one, and because it's really poignant. What did you learn, either about yourself as a writer or a writing process, or just a fun fact? What did you learn by writing Earth Almanac?
Well, one of the things I learned is to be concise and not use extra words, because I had to fit this stuff into, a 2-page spread.
Right.
It's very hard, as Mark Twain said. I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time. And I think that helped my writing a lot. There's a lot of extra garbage words writers use still, and you can train yourself to lose those. And I think that's one of the things I learned. And of course, I learned a lot about nature, because this didn't all just come from the top of my head. I interviewed biologists, checked around and got out in the field myself.
Yeah. So someone did ask, which this might be the best thing to end on, but there was a last minute request. You did read a bit for us earlier, but do you have another section that we just can't end this event on without you sharing with us?
Well, fall, since it's fall.
Yes, let's do fall.
I'll do a short fall essay.
Okay, I'll pop out and then pop back in again.
Okay. While not immune to spring-induced giddiness, members of the Williams family are far more afflicted with a previously undescribed malady called fall fever. We feel first symptoms on those crisp mornings just prior to the autumnal equinox, when morning glories open on the lattice work along the south garden wall, when our lake falls silent save for the lapping of waves and the gobbling of northern ducks, when aspens and tamaracks go smoky gold, swamp maples blaze, and the azure sky is one shade richer than at any other time of year. Fall brings the fragrance of wood smoke and leaf smoke, the sweet rotten scent of frost-killed ferns and deer-bitten apples, young grouse and the touch-me-nots, woodcocks fluttering moth-like into bare alder runs at dusk, wild geese barking as if from treetop level, and yet so high they look like ribbons of crepe tacked to the corners of the crescent moon. As Joni Mitchell and our friend Tom Rush sing, they've got the urge for going, and they've got the wings to go. Migrations of geese and other waterfowl are noticed by most people, even those generally oblivious to the other natural world. But the greatest migrations on Earth pass unseen by all but a few thousand Americans. They happen not with mammals on old world steppes or savannas, or even with birds along busy flyways, but with sea creatures underwater along the west and east coasts.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I love the fall fever introduction, because that's perfect, and I think is a excellent description of what we're all feeling right now. Ted, I can't thank you enough for joining us, and I want to thank all of our viewers today again for spending their Wednesday evening with us. We hope that this has inspired you to get out and go explore nature, and to purchase Earth Almanac, which you can buy at tatteredcover.com. Links are in the description below, or you can always search it on our website. Ted, do you want to just take a moment and tell people where they can find your writing, or just remind them who you are?
Just Google Ted Williams and then with a minus mark, the baseball player, or you get nothing but the baseball player. So Ted Williams Wildlife, Ted Williams Fish. You get a lot of my stuff. Might have to sift through a lot of baseball stuff, but do minus Red Sox, minus baseball, minus batting, minus all that stuff.
You got the wrong person if it starts about baseball, y'all. Well, Ted, and thank you for educating us. Thank you for gifting us with this positivity and, really just reminding us how far we've come so that we don't slide back, as you said. And thank you for this conversation. It's been lovely and widely educational for me. So.
Thank you. It was good to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, if you'll stay on for just a moment while I cut the feed, I just want to remind everybody that our stores are open. You can come visit us if you wear your mask. You can always shop online for Earth Almanac and other books at tatteredcover.com. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe and happy reading. And we're out. Thank you so much.